With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So breaking news and the big news of the day, especially if you're listening to my show delayed, is the Supreme Court gave President Donald Trump a huge victory as it pertains to lower federal courts blocking executive orders that the president makes and their local or their finite jurisdiction being applied nationally has been limited by the Supreme Court. The justices ruled 6-3 to allow the lower courts to issue injunctions only in limited instances. And there were many cases that had to do with birthright citizenship and other issues where we've seen lower courts or federal judges institute nationwide bans. And the Supreme Court was firm on how they're not necessarily ruling on birthright citizenship and the legality of that started, I believe, in the 14th Amendment in 1868 to protect the children of slaves and allow them to be naturalized and become U.S. citizens. They didn't necessarily weigh in on birthright citizenship, but they did focus on the merits of universal injunctions. And so it instructed the lower courts to move expeditiously to ensure that with respect to each plaintiff, the injunctions, quote, comport with this rule and otherwise comply with the principles of equity. So, you guys know more about law than I do. But, do federal courts have the ability to in their jurisdiction, take something of the president, the commander in chief does, and block it? They can give their opinion. I mean, they have jurisdiction within their jurisdiction, but to have the power over the whole United States, that's giving them the same power as the commander in chief. Now, of course, Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented on the case. They felt that this was, quote, nothing less than an open invitation for the government to bypass the Constitution. Because what the federal courts do is they look at the constitutionality of things. It's part of a checks and balance. But what's been happening is every single thing Donald Trump has been suggesting, they've been blocking. And we've been seeing it on the other side, too. We've been seeing federal judges block things as although, as it pertained to immigration during the Biden administration, I mean, like the Texas courts were just trying to protect the country. But there is a limitation on what the federal judges could do. The birthright citizenship, this is going to be very, very interesting, because if you are if somebody is here legally and they give birth, that child has now birthright. They are now American citizens. But the question that's going to be coming back to the courts, probably the Supreme Court's going to be having to look at this, is what if somebody snuck across the border and is here illegally? If they are here illegally, does that then revoke the birthright status? Birthright citizenship, as I said, was established by the 14th Amendment, intended to grant citizenship to formerly enslaved people and their descendants. It was ratified in 1868, and it states all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens. Well, this this unfortunately was taken advantage, and we've seen this in movies and comedies where people are coming across the border, giving birth, lying down on the border, giving birth on one side, which is not necessarily accurate. It's very difficult to be across a logistical border and have the proper prenatal and natal, shall we say, experience. But figuratively, people have been coming across. There's even been tourism. There's been a form of trafficking in terms of getting people over here so that their children can then be American citizens. Listen, I want everybody to have a chance to be an American citizen. I'm grateful that I am, although my father came to this country, became a citizen first before I was born. But, being here legally and then, being here for, the year or two or visa or whatever legal qualifications you have, and then becoming pregnant, having a child, that's what the law protects. But if somebody's here illegally, that's going to be the question that later, not the Supreme Court did not address it now, but later, if somebody is illegally here, then is the law null and void because they don't get the protections of the law if they violated the law to be here, or does the law protect everybody, including criminals? So that's going to be a discussion for the courts another time. But this is a huge win for President Trump. I believe he's holding a press conference now. And, I'm very, I'm very frustrated that the law, especially as it pertains to the Supreme Court, is always so divided along party lines. I don't understand how something like this isn't a slam dunk, isn't common sense. And you rarely see the Supreme Court rule unanimously. And, if you have judges, and judges are supposed to be neutral, non-partial, non-partisan, why are we always seeing 6-3, 6-3? I mean, you have people who are brilliant, who made it to the point where they are Supreme Court justices. How? And are they always differing on party lines? I find that very frustrating. I think that's really flawed in our Supreme Court. The Supreme Court should be of individuals that are neutral, looking at the situation, saying, well, the law says this, the law says this. The politics should not be steering decisions. Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Ketanji Jackson Brown, they should not be fearful of cancel culture. They have lifetime appointments. Same thing with Alito and Comey Barrett and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. Nobody should feel like, well, I got to go this side. I got to go this side. So they may really feel that way. But how do you have judges that went to law school, have looked at the same laws, always seem to interpret it so dividedly? I find that odd. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new, lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So we have some good news, all right? Heart attack deaths are dropping. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. But you need to be very careful with this headline, because when you see this headline, you might think, oh, great. Okay, so my chance of having a heart attack has now dropped 90%. You got to be careful with what you're reading. All right, I'll tell you what's going on. Heart attacks is still the #1 killer, or heart disease is still the #1 killer. But we are seeing heart attacks surpassed by other cardiac conditions. And these other cardiac conditions need to be addressed, and we'll talk to you about some of the factors that could be contributing to these cardiac conditions. So basically the headline, after the SCOTUS headline, which we just talked about, of the day, which obviously is some of the bigger news, but in terms of medical news, there's a report from the American Heart Association, a study that has found overall heart disease-related deaths dropped 66%, and heart attack deaths dropped by almost 90%. Now, they say heart attacks are no longer the most fatal form of heart disease, but there have been increases in other heart failure, arrhythmias, hypertensive heart disease. Heart failure is where the heart pump doesn't pump properly. You could get swelling, you could get difficulty breathing. If the heart doesn't work well, you don't end up pumping blood throughout your body. Arrhythmia is where you have an abnormal heart rhythm, whether it's SVT, supraventricular tachycardia, or atrial fibrillation, or other abnormal. There's tons of different abnormal cardiac dysrhythmias. Arrhythmia means no rhythm in a way, but dysrhythmia is an abnormal rhythm, but we still lump them under arrhythmia. Semantics, but abnormal heart rhythms could, of course, affect the pump, affect the blood flow to the heart, the blood flow to the body, and then, of course, hypertensive of heart disease, where high blood pressure affects the heart. So the findings were published in the Journal of American Heart Association. They looked at 50 years of data from the CDC, focusing on heart disease deaths among adults aged 25 and older. Now, back in 1970, heart attacks or ischemic heart disease, heart attacks we call when, let's say, the vessels going to the heart to supply the heart muscle get blocked, either by arteriosclerosis or a plaque breaking off and then causing a clotting and then massive myocardial infarction or a lack of blood flow to the heart muscle. Back in 1970, heart attacks represented 54% of all heart deaths. By 2022, only 29% of the heart deaths were caused by heart attacks, meaning heart failure, hypertensive heart disease, and arrhythmia rose. Now, they say in 2022, these other types are responsible for 47% of heart disease deaths, up from 9%. So they're looking at the distribution. Still, almost 400,000 people a year die of heart attacks. We still have heart attacks. And as our population is growing, the numbers are still there. We're not saying that all of a sudden now we only have a couple thousand people died of heart attacks. Heart attacks are happening. In fact, of the deaths, roughly 387,000, let's say, heart attack deaths per year of some of the latest numbers from previous years. We have close to 700,000 heart attacks per year. Heart attacks are still very, very common. But what they're saying is what people are dying of is not necessarily the heart attack. Now, this is not breaking news because we've been talking about this for years. Now that we have statins, we understand how to use baby aspirin, how to use the baby blockers, how to use thrombolytics, how to treat a heart attack. Our fantastic network of paramedics and EMTs and our medical infrastructure and our education on signs of heart disease. If somebody has a heart attack, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a death sentence, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden heart attacks are dropping. Okay? So people are still having heart attacks. But what I take from this is, whoa, why are more people dying of heart failure? Why are more people getting arrhythmias? Okay, we've been making such great progress, trying to get people's cholesterol looked at, blood sugar looked at, getting them to exercise, watch their diet. Why would we have other heart issues now start to surpass the causes of death? We know how to treat heart failure. We know how to treat arrhythmias. We got medications. So what's going on there? Well, I think one major issue as it pertains to heart failure is our use of anti-inflammatories. People are popping ibuprofen and naproxen like it's candy. I had a patient ripping me a new one because she keeps calling telemedicine to get 800 milligrams of ibuprofen for certain aches and pains. And I go, you shouldn't be taking 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. If you do, maybe post-surgically for a couple days, but I'm even seeing orthopedists, when somebody breaks a bone, not give 800 anymore. 800 milligrams of ibuprofen could affect the kidneys, could affect your GI system, could affect your heart. These things could cause heart failure. Is it because people are self-medicating and taking the anti-inflammatories? Is it because of people's alcohol use? Is it because of their drug use? Is it because people aren't going to the doctor and getting things checked? Is it that they think their shortness of breath is asthma, so they're calling a telemedicine company for an inhaler? And then by the time their heart failure finally gets diagnosed, it's too late. One sign of heart failure is leg swelling. And I can't tell you how many times people are calling up telemedicine saying, give me a diuretic. And I go, why? I got leg swelling. I got kinkles. I need a diuretic. I go, has anybody looked at why you're having leg swelling? That could be a sign of your heart pump not pumping correctly, so you're getting now some backflow, or it could be an issue with your lower vessels. No, just give me a diuretic. I go, we can't dehydrate you enough to make that work. We need to figure out, because you still have to stand up. You still have gravity. You still have to have multiple liters of blood and fluid in your body. Making you pee more might help, a little bit. And we do use diuretics to treat heart failure, but can we figure out why you're swelling first? And so maybe one of the things going on is people are just not going in to the doctor or the medical provider and getting diagnosed with why, they're having the swelling or the difficulty breathing or the fatigue or the dizziness. Arrhythmias, abnormal heart rhythms, these are scary. If you have an abnormal heart rhythm, not only could it stop your heart, but it could put you at risk for stroke. Energy drinks, high-dose caffeine, drug use can cause arrhythmias. Stress could cause arrhythmias. Having a previous heart attack that could affect the muscle tissue could affect the electrical impulses of the heart. So prior to telemedicine and prior to COVID, you would go to the medical provider. We would, depending on your age, depending on your risk factors, do an EKG, check your heart, ask you, are you having a rapid heart rate? Are you feeling like your heart is skipping a beat? Do you feel like your heart is pounding? Do you feel lightheaded? These are signs that could be that your heart rhythm is abnormal. And, now people will call up going, I have anxiety. Oh, you do? Okay, let's talk about your anxiety. What are your symptoms? I have, my heart is racing. Has anybody examined your heart? No, I just need some Xanax or I just need an anti-anxiety. It's not the heart. I get panic attacks. Well, as we've discussed on the show, if you're feeling chest pain, if you're having an abnormal heart rhythm, your heart's involved. Whether you think it's mental health or not, mental health affects our physical health. We've proven that time and time again. So if you're having a racing heart, if you're having chest pain, if you're having trouble breathing, somebody needs to be checking your heart. And then which came first, the chicken or the egg? If, God forbid, my heart went into an abnormal rhythm, hell yeah, I would be panicked. If I didn't feel like I was breathing, I would panic. So what if there's a medical cause that's first? The increase of other types of heart disease that's surpassing heart attack is not necessarily good news. And we need to see the numbers. Most of the numbers we're getting is from 2021, 2022. How many people died of a heart attack? Now, those numbers are getting harder to get because if autopsies aren't ordered or people aren't going to the doctor or they're found in bed dead, and so the death certificate says, cause of death unknown or assumed cardiovascular, we're not necessarily getting the exact diagnosis. But we do need to know the numbers because I seriously think we still have a horrible number of heart attacks and heart disease happening. And we need to make people aware. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So when I was in school and we had sex ed, my parents had to sign an opt-in. There had to be parental permission. And we had parental permission on a variety of things in schools. And then I guess when the topics of LGBTQ, AI plus, and books being read in school came about, some of the schools had given parents the option and the majority of the parents said no. And from what I'm understanding, some of the schools decided to not ask the parents. And so content that some parents might have found inappropriate for the age group or against their religious beliefs were presented to kids, and some parents sued. In the case of Mahmoud versus Taylor, this, I believe, happened in Maryland. The court had to look at a case that involved parents' religious rights versus LGBTQ books in public schools. And the court ruled that a group of Maryland parents did have the right to opt their children out of lessons at their public elementary schools with LGBTQ plus inclusive storybooks if they feel it violated their religious beliefs. So the parents had argued that the lessons were part of a mandatory part of the school curriculum, and it was unconstitutionally a burden to their rights of religious freedom. Now, the ruling did not necessarily provide a final judgment, but it did allow that the parents are allowed to proceed with the case. And that parents, according to the 6-3 judges, again, conservative-leaning judges versus the liberal-leaning judges, found that children would suffer irreparable harm if their children were forced to attend lessons in the interim. So there's going to be more to come with this case, but it did allow now parents to have more power over what is taught in public schools. Now, Justice Sonia Sotomayor argued that the decision creates a parental veto power in schools that threatens the very essence of public education. This is being reported by Yahoo News. So here's the thing. So where I believe the liberal justices are arguing is that it's the job of the school to teach kids about society, teach kids to be open, understanding, and so the public education system incorporating these sorts of material is something that is necessary. Whereas the conservative leading justices are, if a parent of Christian faith finds this subject matter to be against their religion, if they do not want the child to be, seeing some of the content, and some of the content that we've seen has been very sexualized in these books, the parent should have the ability to opt out. And so even though you would think that's common sense, people are making arguments. Well, what about evolution versus creationism? Is a school allowed to teach evolution? So here's the thing: the LGBTQ stories. I'm a little intrigued by, because your sexual affinity and your desire of who you want to have sexual relationships with is not necessarily something that young grade schools kids need to be exposed to. Now, in sex ed, understanding that there are people who are straight, there are people that are homosexual, people that education is fine in older aged students, but young storybooks, talking about that sort of material, if a parent wants to opt out, even if it has nothing to do with their religion, they should be able to. If a parent wants to discuss sex ed and does not want sex ed taught in the school, they can. They used to be able to, but I guess the schools started to make things mandatory when too many parents were opting out. So we are going to see over the next decade a huge debate on what exactly should be taught in public education, because, again, everything started to get politicized. You would think school was simple. You got math, you got reading. I told you how school should be. The mornings should be compact courses, 20, 30 minutes of your math, your reading, your science, your history, your language, your writing, typing, whatever, in the mornings, because classes should not be an hour long. These kids are getting tired. They eat lunch, whether it's at home or out school, wherever they feel comfortable, and there's no bullies. And then the afternoon is all the practical learning. Depending on your age, Right? You go from farming or the trades, learning about construction work, learning about electricity, plumbing, medicine, teaching, marketing, all throughout the years. And the school's relatively similar so that if a child moves, I went to 12 schools, so I got the same thing multiple times and I missed out on other lessons. Where if a child moves, that month is basically the plumbing month, or that month is the farming month or a course. And then kids also learn basic first aid, CPR, another language, self-defense, how to do survival courses, where the afternoon is all practical learning. And I think a kid is going to be much more well-rounded. So by the time they are 16 years old, a sophomore, they know they have a good idea of what they might want to do in life. High school ends sophomore year. And then your junior and senior year is now your associate's degree for college within the same walls of the school. This is your free college. There's your junior and senior year, or your trade certification in plumbing or electricity and so every child, by the time they graduate at the age of 18, they then are well-rounded or they have an ability to start getting a job. The idea of introducing them to society where we have to do it out, bringing books in from outside the walls becomes moot because they are going to be exposed to people in their society through the plumber teaching them, the construction worker teaching them, the farmer, the singer, the musician. They are going to be exposed to that. You don't need to be reading them a book. And so the well-roundedness of I really would like to see schools taught that way. And boy, would our kids be ready for the outside world by the time they're 18. And now we don't have to pay for free college. It's already incorporated with their junior and senior year. But instead, it's, you're stuck in a classroom for 8 hours. So we have to bring in reading material to tell you what's outside the walls. That doesn't make sense to me. And, parents are looking at public education going, are my kids even becoming proficient in math? Are they becoming proficient in science? Are they proficient? Are they able to compete with kids in China, with kids in Israel or Japan or Spain? How is their education comparing? And instead, there's so much focus on societal type stuff. I mean, there's a way to teach environment and teach how to respect the environment when you do your nature and your farming lessons. When I grew up in Arizona, and I went to 12 schools, but we had a desert survival course. Well, I got to tell you, teaching us how to survive in the desert and how to get the fruit from a prickly pear and how to get water out of a saguaro, I appreciated the hell out of those. Nobody had to say appreciate the plants. You learned how to appreciate because it was common sense. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with schools. 1-877 Doc Dali.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. So my hair has been thinning. I got a lot of hair on my head, but I don't have as full a head as I did when I was younger. Women's hair loses, can thin as well. I'm still fortunate. I still have a lot of hair, but it is less. But I have a lot of guy friends, and boy, are they balding. And they're I just remember their big, beautiful hair. I never ran my fingers through their hair because they were friends of mine, but I could just imagine how thick their hair was. Hubby still has hair, not as thick as it used to be, but he still has hair. But males really don't like losing their hair, nor do females, although we women could cover it up a little better. And so I keep getting asked, from my friends and patients, what do I do to fix my hair? How do I keep my hair? Well, our hair thins for a variety of reasons. Our hair is made in follicles, and these follicles are within the skin, and they grow for a few years, and then they shed, and then new hair grows. And so alopecia, or hair loss, occurs when these hair follicles don't seem to keep up with demand. They shrink. They may get smaller. The type of hair they grow may be thinner than the thicker stalk that you had, or the thicker filament. Or the times the hair lasts become shorter and shorter. Genetics play a huge factor. The most influential genes from balding come from the mother chromosomes. But keep in mind, the mother chromosome's XX. They had to get a chromosome from the dad. So it's not just mom's genes. It's maternal and paternal. The most influential genes comes from mom, but you still could get balding genes from dad. Now, in my family, my dad still had his hair. He died at the age of 62 before he lost his hair. So, but my kids are thinking they might be okay because we're pretty hairy. Right, the family. But, losing hair, guys, you're still sexy. I mean, Bruce Willis, sexy. Telly Savalas was sexy. Yul Brynner. I mean, I think baldness is sexy. So don't be panicked about losing hair. Although the hair protects you against the sun. It protects you against pathogens. It is a barrier, and I understand and I appreciate when people want their hair. It's not all about vanity. They're losing something they had. So if you do have a loved one or a friend that is losing their hair, don't just make fun of them like I do. When did your old ass start going bald? Understand that it's not easy, and they're going through something. From a doctor, I have to worry if there's a medical condition. When I see somebody losing their hair, male or female, is there something going on with their testosterone, with their sex hormones, with diabetes, with their thyroid, cancer? These are things that could cause hair loss. A recent study, or actually the study a few years ago, found prostaglandin D2 protein may block hair growth in those who suffer male pattern baldness. So they were looking at medications that could maybe block the prostaglandin D2, a double negative. 80% of men under 70 will have some receding hairline, and most men will have a thinning of their hair. Well, apparently there's a new stem cell therapy that is showing promising results for treating hair loss. Researchers at the San Carlos Clinical Hospital Madrid has a possible solution. What they did, now this is mice. Again, all these studies seem to involve animals, so I can't say it's going to be comparable to humans. But they injected mice's skin with stem cells from human fat cells or adipose-derived stem cells to treat androgenetic alopecia, or male or female pattern hair loss. And the team found that the male mice achieved the best hair regrowth after 3 weeks when they received these injections combined with an energy-boosting molecule called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. Low-dose and high-dose treatments of these stem cells, along with the ATP, led to medium, greater regrowth, I think in both. However, if it was a low dose or high dose, it didn't seem to do much for the females, but a medium dose was just right. So the researchers concluded that hair regrowth was improved in all experimental groups where male mice received stem cell solutions. With female that had to be supplemented with the ATP. For females, the studies were a little mixed, but the medium dose worked. So what does this mean? Does it mean we have a cure for baldness? No. But it means that they're working on it. And I think something like hair growth and baldness can be eventually reversed. And I think it can be protected. With appropriate doses, the researchers said they achieved very high percentages of hair regrowth, noting that 100% of the male mice and up to 90% of female mice regrew their hair. They say these results demonstrate that advanced therapies may represent a new therapeutic approach for many diseases in which no effective treatments are currently available. Stem cells are a fantastic type of treatment where these are cells that you could, I don't want to use the word manipulate, but goad into doing certain growths or growing into, our body uses stem cells for our own growth, and for them to be able to stimulate the hair cells as if you were an infant is a science that is right now being exponentially investigated. And we use stem cell therapy on a variety of things. And so looking at ways to, get people there, because as I said, losing hair is a disability. It might not get Medicare or Social Security benefits, but if you lose your hair and you feel like you have to have, other forms of protection to protect yourself from sun rays, etc., to me, that's disabling. Now, what most people use is minoxidil. Minoxidil is a vasodilator. So what that does is it widens your blood vessels, and that increases blood flow to the hair follicles, potentially prolonging the hair growth phase and reducing hair shedding. As we age, our blood vessels might thin, not have as much good flow. And so even though people say, well, maybe minoxidil, is affecting our hormones, it's more like Rogaine, et cetera. It's more of a vascular type of mechanism. And for some people, it works. Increasing the blood flow to the follicles can help. But if that's not your problem, then it won't work. So, losing hair, not easy. And as I said, some people, they embrace it. Joe Rogan embraced it. He shaved. Oh my gosh, Harrison on Pawn Stars. He embraced it. Rick Harrison, shaved. It's, the baldness is something that I think can still show your virility, still show you're handsome, still got it. You just have to wear hats. You got to protect your scalp and, skin cancer risk. But for those of you that are in that in-between stage where you really don't want to shave it and you want to save what you have and you don't want to do a comb over, there are things out there. But another thing that we have to also realize is if you're losing your hair, figure out the why. Don't just blame your mom, because it could be a sign of diabetes. It could be a sign of thyroid issues. It could be a sign of your hormones being off. A lot of females lose their hair because they're losing their estrogen. So you might need to have other sorts of interventions because of other body issues. And so make sure you look at that. Now, I remember there was a study looking at prostate cancer risk as it pertained to minoxidil. Now, this was a study years ago. Now, I don't think we have enough research on the effects of minoxidil and prostate cancer. Some people say it could be used as a treatment. Others say, listen, there's been mix and match studies depending on if any of these medications could possibly, affect, one's prostate cancer risk. So I would make sure you, again, get this evaluated and talk to your medical provider. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.